rock and roll. And then this is what I'm afraid. Yeah, that's what I thought. I cannot minimize the Zoom while I'm recording. Oh, but when I'm recording, I cannot maximize it. Okay, great. Rockin'. Okay.
It's fine.
We're doing great. I might just open it on my phone since I took a picture. I'm smart.
That is totally allowed. You are
Yeah.
smart.
Thank you for the
You're
validation.
welcome.
What a great way to open this episode. Validation.
Should we just keep this? Not cut it out.
And with little music and go.
No, I feel like I'd be the do 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 do.
All right. Great.
Hello.
And welcome to this episode of Primordial Threads. I'm one of your hosts, Hannah.
I'm Anna, and we are doing some mini episodes.
Yeah, we thought we have some pretty cool archetypal episodes coming up where we're really going to get into the archetypes of the planets and how they are expressed in mythologies and in natal charts and all of this stuff. But we wanted to kind of first do a little bit of a foundation, a series of mini episodes called What the Planets Do. One of the hardest things that I've personally found in delineation is just kind of bringing words to what I'm seeing in the chart. Like when I'm looking at a chart, it kind of all swirls around in my head and like this primordial soup of like images and pictures and stories. So kind of just breaking down that language and breaking it down to the basics, the traditional, like what the planets actually do, what their nature is, what they're doing in the natal chart, the way that they act. So we're going to do a short series exploring what the planets do.
Yep. And I think the planets give us the intention of whatever the heck is happening in the chart. So
Mm-hmm.
it's really good to be able to strip back and look at them and understand them instead of just basing it off of the zodiac signs, which
Mm-hmm.
are inherently connected, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not the base level that we should be
Yeah,
thinking of.
exactly. Because once you understand the planets and what signs they rule, it's like, oh, that's why Leo is the way it is, because it's
Mhm.
the character, it's the ruler, it's where the sun rules. And that actually, there we go, great example to use. Because today we're going to start with the sun. We're going to start with the luminaries and then kind of move through the personal and then the social planets. But today we thought we would start it off with the sun.
Yes, of course, which the sun would love to be first because it is center.
Yeah, it is quite literally the center of our universe, or I
Yes.
should say the center of our solar system, which is kind of funny because it's not technically the center of our universe, is it?
I don't know.
I
I've
don't
never
think
thought
it
about that.
is, but the
New
sun
things
gives
to
you the
Google.
vibe. But the sun gives you the vibe like I am the center of all. That's
As
the
a first house
very
sun, yes. I'm just kidding. Not
Are
really,
you though?
but
Exactly. So the sun rules one sign, which I think is kind of cool for the luminaries. Each of them only rule one sign, whereas the other planets all rule two. So it's like this is really the sign. Leo is the sign that the sun rules, and it really does kind of embody, or at least give a good vehicle for the traits that the sun embodies. The things that the sun does show up very pronounced and loudly in the sign of Leo.
yeah. And I also think it's cool that the sun and moon only have one sign that they're ruling
Mm-hmm.
because they are the archetypal yin and yang, whereas
Yeah,
every other planet has a yin and yang side to it. But the sun is yang, it is that
mm-hmm.
energy exemplified. So
Absolutely.
we'll get into
Yeah.
that.
We love that. And then it's exalted in Aries, which I feel like is another great example of that yang energy.
Mhm.
The action, the movement, um the shining, the illumination, the light, the spark.
Yeah.
It's all of those kinds of, keywords that we think about when we talk about the sun.
And it's both a fire sign. They're both fire
Mm-hmm.
signs. So it is still that hot, the hot energy.
Super hot. Yeah, but exactly. So it's the fire energy. It's the active, hot, consuming, all encompassing. In Leo,
Action
it's
oriented.
exactly. In Leo, I like that it's fixed fire.
Mhm.
So you're thinking about the element and the modality there. And that feels very on par for the sun. Like the sun is, like we said, the center of our solar system, and its cycles, we can track it going through each of the signs of the zodiac, going around, or we can track the earth's motion around it. Everything is very consistent. Like you always hear that one phrase, the sun always rises in the morning.
Mhm.
It's like a very fixed quality.
Yeah. And I mean, the sun never stops shining, even though we can't see it, and we get the moon's light from the sun. So
Mm-hmm.
it's still working even at night when we
Yep.
can't see it. And that feels
24/7.
very fixed.
Oh yeah. Very fixed. I will shine my light all the time. You do not have a choice. I mean, I guess you do have a choice to look at it or not, but regardless of whether you look or not, I will be shining.
It's always going to be going. Yep.
Exactly. So what are some like action verbs that you would use to describe things that the sun does?
Yeah. I think leading is
Mm,
one that comes in with it because there's like the traditional signification of kings being signified by the sun or
mhm.
leaders. So that comes to mind.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Illumination,
That was another one I have,
light,
illuminates. It's
burning.
very burns was the other one. So those
Yeah.
are three good ones. Those are kind of three of the things that jumped out to me at first, was like this concept of power and leadership,
Mm,
and um the power and the illumination kind of goes together nicely for the sun because it demands to be recognized. It's like
yeah.
it's illuminating, it's the visibility, it's shining light, it's expressing something,
Mm,
and it's wanting to be recognized for that thing.
yeah. When you think about it, like if you have a big celebrity, right, they would be considered kind of a solar figure because I think modern celebs are kind of like the noble class of the US a little bit.
Love that.
And so, like
But you're right.
if you had one of them walking around on the street, you wouldn't notice anything else because it's like, wow, there's that person right there. And that's
Hmm.
kind of how the sun is, right? Like you can't see anything when it gets close to it because it's just so bright.
Yeah, exactly. So then we take this kind of idea of illumination, brightness, shining, and then when you apply it to the astrology chart, to the natal chart, specifically, where the sun is where it is shining its light. It's where it's shining the attention. And this is also kind of where I think the idea of ego and the will comes into it.
Hmm.
It's like the sun, and it goes so well. The sun and the moon, it's like I almost can't talk about one without talking about the other because they
Yeah.
are they
They're
do
the
play
pair.
opposite. Yeah, they play like these complementary roles. Um, like let me see, what did I write down? Because I had the perfect words for it. Yes, okay. So it's like the ego and the conscious self, like the
Mm,
things that you're consciously acting upon, doing, deciding, showing, like the way that you are choosing to interact with the world, versus the moon being like the unconscious, like how do I actually like want to feel, how do I feel comfortable experiencing the world? So like
mhm.
the moon is more like the experience, whereas the sun is the more like active participation and like what you're choosing to put out.
Yeah. I think also I've heard the sun kind of described as the central organizing principle for your life.
Mm,
And when you think about where the sun is placed in the natal chart, you'll often find the house that it's in or the sign that it's in. There is this quality of people organize their life around it, right?
mhm.
So, like for you, you organize your life around all of the third housey things. There
Yes.
it is.
Yep.
Very focused on
Things
all
like,
of
yep, my siblings are a huge part of my life, my immediate community, communication in general.
that. Mhm.
It's the house of the goddess, so I'm very focused on like, you know, the feminine side of like mysticism and ritual practices and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah,
And then
great
I
example.
I organize around myself. So
With the first house son.
yeah, which sounds crappy, but
But I mean, no, not necessarily. It's
it,
like
it just is.
it just is. Exactly. And that's the thing. There is no like good or bad. Like it's just The sun is where it is. It's doing what it's doing, and we really don't have a choice. Like, it's doing the thing. That's the thing that you're going to consciously come back to time and time again.
Yeah.
Um, what are your thoughts on it as like the ego? What are your thoughts on how the ego plays a role both in the natal chart and in like us as people in relation to the sun? Big
Ugh.
question, I know.
Okay, I don't know because I still feel like I'm parsing out the ego itself because
Yeah.
I I kind of am like obsessed with the idea of an ego death where I feel like it's almost
Ooh.
good for people to have an ego death in like a weird
Mm,
way, where it's like you have to be able to step outside of yourself to function in the world. So I think the sun sometimes can kind of show us like where we get into this space of like only being obsessed with this thing. And it's like you gotta step outside of your sun, you know?
yes. I mean, that is what you just said is so good in and of
Thank
itself
you.
because no, really, because the sun is the sun, but the sun can't do anything as the sun up there is this flaming ball of fire. Like it can't just come down onto us and it would scorch us all up.
Oh
So it
yeah.
has to extend its light and have its light be doing that work. And like that is the
Mhm.
stepping outside of itself. So it's kind of not necessarily like seeing like I am the sun in my chart. Like that is me. It's like, no, that is something that I am able to harness and shine out, and
Mm.
how can I reflect that on everything else that's happening here?
I have chills. Okay,
Oh,
that was
good.
beautiful.
Very good. Whew.
Cool.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's
I
one thing
like
the
that
sun does.
too.
I also liked what you said about the organizing structure because the sun gives me very reason oriented vibes,
Mhm.
rather than instinct. It is kind of like I've seen it linked a lot to intellect and thought processes, higher thinking, regality, all of these things.
Mhm.
It's a very like eloquent, like regal
Yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean it's supposed to be. And I think like there's also a
Mm-hmm.
delegating kind of feeling to the
Mm,
sun as well, where I mean a king would delegate out things to other people.
yeah,
So, there's definitely that.
yeah.
Mm. I'm trying to think of other ways that it shows up in the natal. I also think it's interesting that it kind of has this purifying quality as well, because I've
Mm-hmm.
heard it talked about whenever planets are having their passes and conjunctions with the sun, it's like the sun is burning off all of the impurities of the planet in order to be able to have the meeting with the king or queen
Yeah,
or reigning leader, and like you have to have all of that stripped away to be able to meet with the divine.
yeah. Oh, you know what that brings into mind? I think no, genuinely is like I think a good way to see what the sun does is see how society has deified masculinity.
Mhm.
Um
Yeah, just the words that we're using.
the words that it's like the sun, we expect a lot of, we have high standards for it. We have this very clear picture of the way things should be, and that is the way to do it, and that's the way to become idolized, that's the way to become wealthy. It's like we
Mhm.
deify this concept of masculinity, um through things like a like capitalism. I'll just use as an example, like that's the
The
easiest one for me
classic.
to go for. But genuinely, and it's like the sun, yes, it's this like kind of masculine, and I say masculine not necessarily just with the like gender thing. Like we've talked about, like there's a feminine, there's a masculine energy, and it's not necessarily linked to gender. There's an active, there's a receptive, there's a,
Mhm. Yeah, but
there's
like
two sides of the coin, but
the active has been
has,
definitely seen as a better thing where like people
yes.
need to be active to
Mm-hmm.
function in society.
Exactly. And I think it's important to remember that like while the sun does its best work when it is acting out, what its will and everything, it has to work in harmony with everything else in order for the strongest fruits to be born of its actions.
Yeah, well, I mean, you think about it, like no plant is gonna do well if it was just under the sun 24/7.
Yep.
right, it would just scorch the fuck out of it.
Yep.
And you would have no plants.
Yep.
So you can't always be solar all the time, or
Exactly.
you will burn your little body up.
hmm So then I think it's a good practice to like look at what the sun is aspecting in your chart and say, okay, these are the things that are being lit up. These are the things that my will is driven to kind of like utilize, and try to think of those things not as like, think of them as things to incorporate rather than as tools to commodify,
Yeah.
think of them things to integrate. Integration, I think, is a good word for solar things, because, and I would say it's more of
Mhm.
like a lunar phrase actually, and that's why it's good to use for the sun,
Because it
because while the
balances.
sun, exactly, yeah,
Mm.
so it's like remembering to try and integrate those things rather than just producing at all times.
Yeah. I feel like we're getting into solar remediation right
Oh
now.
gosh, yeah. Oh yeah, I didn't even try, but hello, I'm a lunar person, and
And
they
I
made
am
me talk about the sun.
this is this is fun because I'm so solar and you're so lunar, and
hmm
this is our wheelhouse.
It is. So with you with the first house sun, like what are things that like? What's part of that experience? Like what feels very hallmark about the experience of being a first house sun, like being the sun almost incarnate in a way?
Everybody tells me that I am just so comfortable being myself in most situations, and that they don't understand how I just exude myself all the
hmm
time. And like, I'm gonna be honest, I don't even notice it. It just kind of is.
I
And
love
I'm like,
that.
oh, I'm myself. Okay, cool.
That's great. That's a
So,
good one, though. I mean, the sun is unapologetically burning brightly, shining, illuminating. Like it is what it is. And it's not sorry about it. I love
and
that.
it doesn't feel bad about it. It
Mm-mm.
doesn't even think about it. That's the other thing.
Mm-mm.
It's like it's so deeply ingrained. It's just
Mm-hmm.
there. So I feel like sometimes it is harder for me to talk about the sun in a way because it is
Mm.
such a deep part of myself that
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
there, and
Yeah.
other people notice it, but I'm like, oh, cool, you're not like that. That's weird.
That is so funny, just kind of like the oblivion to like, oh, there's another way of being. Like
Yeah.
that's the sun, is just like, this is just the way. That's the consistency. That's like the fixed fire. And
Yeah.
that's where Leo gets a lot of its, I mean, and now you can kind of see as we've been talking about all of this,
hmm
you might be like, are you not talking about Leo? And it's like, well, no, we're not. We're talking about the sun, but the reason why Leo is the way it is because it gets its significations from its ruler, which is the sun.
Yeah, and Leo exemplifies the sun beautifully,
Yes.
and you always have the the Leos I know, they are just they have an energy about them,
Yeah.
where they just feel bright and warm,
Yes.
even if you don't like them, like they just they're just like
You're like, damn it. Like, even though I don't like you, like, I kind of like you. Like, it's impossible. You always notice, I think, the Leo house in your chart is somewhere like, well, Leo sun specifically. I mean, you have the chart, not the chart ruler, but the ruler of the sign at home in the sign. So
Mhm.
that's where the sun can be like, yes,
I
we're
am
going to
here.
shine. Like, I don't care. No one's stopping me. The windows are open. The sun's coming. I mean, I'm flowing out because I am the sun. Like, it's
Yeah.
just so confident and relaxed and at home and excited to express.
Yeah, they are
So,
very expressive. And,
mhm.
I think that that's another good solar signification is self-expression, where like
Mm,
self-expression will be really important to you if you are a solar
yeah.
person. Like it feels really important to seem like you're seen. Like for
Mhm.
me, I don't like doing anything like therapy or anything like that if I don't feel like the person relates to me as a person, or if they don't
Yeah.
understand me, then
Mhm.
I don't want to talk to you about deep things.
Yeah, and I mean that's also Saturn ruled sun right
So,
there. That's a little but it's both.
yeah.
It's like, no, I need to be seen in my fullness in order to have this moment of vulnerability with you.
hmm
Um that does feel very sad, sun in Capricorn. So then you can take the sun and be like, okay, well, what energies is my sun expressing? What energies is easy for me to shine. And for
Yeah.
me, it's like I'm a Cancer sun. So it's a very lunar situation because then I have the first house moon as well. So then I am just like I radiate like listening.
Yes.
Like I radiate like, and how does that make you feel?
You
Like,
radiate just warmth and
mm,
comfort too, where I think there's like this little like, come, come, children, I will put my little arms around you and just hold you
oh,
here, and nothing's gonna
yes.
fuck with you.
Yeah.
And that feels very Cancerian because, it's like the crab, it has the shell, and you
Hmm.
just like throw the shell over everything you care about, and you're like, okay.
Yep. Exactly. Yes. So then that's like your sun sign is kind of what you exude in that way. It's the things that, and I very much identify with that. Like I do have a desire, and I think desire is another good word for the sun. I
Hmm.
do have a desire to provide that, to exude that, to create those kind of environments where people do feel comfortable and I am caring for people.
Yeah. Do you
So
think the
it's,
sun is also kind of like how you want to be seen in the world and like how you want other people to perceive you?
um, yes, I think there is an element of that is how you want to be seen, but I also think it's an element of what you had to be, what you almost didn't have
Mm.
a choice in, because the sun, I mean, I did say there was a lot of like choice like language I was using, but at the end of the day, the sun is what it is. It's
Yeah.
there, it's constant, it's burning, it's a fact of life. So sometimes, at least I've seen like a lot of sun signs kind of reflect like this is the person I was taught to be, this is the person I was taught I have value as.
Hmm.
And as a person, you do have value as that, obviously, like there is value there, but I feel like
Everybody has
sometimes
value.
there is, yes, but I feel like sometimes the sun is like, this is what there's a perception, it's not the truth, but sometimes we get caught up in that sun sign as this is what I have to be in order to be valuable to people.
Mm.
Whereas it's important to also consider your moon sign because that's what you need in order to feel your own self value, in my
Yeah.
opinion. It's like the self-care area. Um,
Hmm.
so I do think that the sun is, how we want to be seen, but I feel like there's a little element of conditioning there as
Yeah.
well.
No, I totally agree. I think I'm also thinking about the planetary house joys as well. So
Mm,
the sun finds its joy in the ninth house, right?
yeah,
So that's where there is learning and religion,
yeah,
higher education, travel, all of those things.
hmm,
And those all feel very tied into self-expression again
yeah.
for me, where like you do higher education so that you can learn to articulate yourself better.
That's a really good way of putting it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Learn how to articulate yourself. Also just learn, those are all strike me as very kind of Jupiterian things too. The kind
Yes.
of very like moving out, telling the good word, belief, things that we would
Hmm.
typically associate with Jupiter, I feel like also do come back to the sun a bit. They
Yeah.
are on the day team. You think about the sects, the sects are the sun, Jupiter, and Saturn. So they all kind of have similar things in common. And then the
Yeah.
Mars, Venus, and the moon are all together on the night sect. So the sun and Jupiter, they're homies.
Yeah. And like you think about what you do during the day versus at night. And during the day, you're like taking care of business, you're going and
Yes.
seeing the people that you need to see. You are going to work. Hello,
Yeah.
Saturn.
Hello Saturn, but also hello Sun, like the expectations. Like I feel like the
Hmm.
sun does have expectations sometimes of, you're going to set in the evening, you're going to rise in the morning. There is
Hmm.
consistency here. So that's
Yeah.
that's a cool way of thinking about it too.
Mhm.
Anything else that is jumps out or out, jumps and up and out to us about the sun and the things it does?
Trying to think. I am blank.
I think I'm blank too. I think we did a pretty good job. We are gonna do a full, that was long,
Fuller.
a fuller
Spooky.
episode. Spookism. We're gonna do a fuller archetype video about this, but I think as a short kind of
Intro.
intro to the sun, that's pretty darn
Yeah.
good.
This is your appetizer. It is your fried
Appetizer.
pickles and your mozzarella sticks.
Oh, the best ones. Thank you. Austin won't ever get fried pickles with me. He hates pickles, which
I
works out for me because then I get to eat all the pickles, but
I hate pickles too. I'm sorry. It just felt like you would be the person that would like pickles, so I mentioned them for you.
I'm really impressed and frustrated at the same time.
Don't
No, but
hate
it's
me.
okay. No, I know it's fine. I get all the pickles for me. That's fine.
It's fine. You and Lane, you'll be fine.
He likes pickles too.
He loves them and
Tauruses. Let's
ugh,
go. Well, Taurus risings, but maybe
maybe
it's the Cancer. I don't know.
you guys have a lot of stuff the
We have a
same. It
lot of
could be
stuff.
anything.
We are clones. No, not really. Um,
No, but I feel like you guys are like connected. Where it's like you would be like
mhm.
fraternal twins, you know? You wouldn't be
We
twins.
really could.
Or like
I wonder
siblings.
the hacked. I definitely think it is a Taurus rising thing though, because Venus is just like, I will experience all the flavors, all of the things. I love all the experiential things, all
But
of
I
the
feel
things.
like vinegar is like a Saturn thing though. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because
but
like
it's not the same with pickles. It's not. I'm telling you right now, I don't like vinegar typically, but with pickles, it's different.
I don't know, cucumbers kind of suck anyways, and then you just put them in pickled things and make them vinegary and it just also the people that put Kool-Aid packets in their pickles,
People
why?
do what?
Yes, they put
No,
the Kool-Aid little packets and they put it in their pickles and then they shake the jar around and let it sit for a little bit and then the pickles take on this blue tint from the Kool-Aid
I
and
don't
then they're
like
like,
this.
yeah, it's like sweet pickles and I'm like, you are just fucking
No,
up
I have
nature right now, okay?
never heard of such a thing. I would never engage in such a thing.
Maybe it's a southern thing, I don't know,
Maybe.
but I'm
We
not about it.
digress.
Anyways,
Anyways, you guys can find us at Primordial Threads on Twitter. You can find
oh,
Anna.
we
Oh,
also tell them the news about where else we're uploading now.
oh yes, we are now. Haha, you can find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and somewhere else that I can't remember right now.
But we
And
have a
YouTube.
lot.
It's in more places, so go
We are
us.
expanding.
We were waiting for the astro weather to calm down, and then we looked and we're like, it never does.
It didn't, but that's
It's
fine.
never gonna. So uh
Nevertheless, we persist.
indeedly do. Catch us for the next episode. We'll be on the moon. We're gonna continue this conversation. That was terrible. The conversation. I should never have even tried.
You're doing your best. We're
uh
working on like two brain cells right now. I'm one
yeah.
brain cell, Hannah's the other.
Half at this point. But you can catch us next time. Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
Bye.